Spectacular and exotic Thailand, the host country for what's truly a milestone event in the history of aviation. The Asia-Pacific region welcomes pilots from across the globe as they gather here for the first ever Air Race 1 World Cup, presented by Chang. Air Race 1, the series bringing the sport of air racing bang up to date. The sport traces its roots back to the 30s and 40s in the USA and even earlier in Europe. And now it's back to thrill the crowds in what's planned as a full international series for the future. A very competitive and technically advanced form of pure motorsport demanding the highest level of skill, both in the cockpit and in the hangar. All aircraft built to a specific set of Formula 1 class criteria, though many new innovations can be incorporated. It's a thrilling test of pilot skill as up to 8 aircraft at a time race against each other at speeds of over 450 km an hour on a circuit just 5 km long. The first aircraft to cross the finish line wins the fastest international motorsport on Earth. Reno is very much the spiritual home of air racing in the USA, where everything from the fast and nimble Formula 1 planes right up to the unlimited warbirds take to the skies above the deserts of Nevada. Just 2 short months ago, all of the planes here in Thailand were battling it out at the National Championship air races, from where they were containerized and shipped thousands of miles across the Pacific to be painstakingly rebuilt, ready to race for a brand new audience. So the migration of this particular flight managed expertly by the crew at Sports and Events Logistics, bringing Formula 1 air racing to a brand new audience in Asia, one the pilots are particularly pleased to entertain.
It's really nice to get a little recognition because, you know, at Reno we're kind of the little guys and here we're the main event. So it's been not only personal recognition, it's been for the whole group, you know, as a whole. We're getting, I mean, it's worldwide now. It's truly international.
Formula 1 air race pilots are, of course, at the pinnacle of their sport, carrying forward the legacy of their heroic predecessors. Here, they talk about the tools of their trade.
Formula 1 started back in the late 40s, 50s. And the reason it's called formula is there is a formula behind our engines, our wingspan, and minimum weights of the airplane. The engine we can massage a little bit, but cylinders can only take a very minimum volume, so that way you can't run high compression pistons. We have to have a minimum 66 square feet of wing area. The aircraft has to weigh a minimum of 550 pounds. Pilot weight has to be a minimum 150 pounds.
There's 2 different styles of Formula 1 racers. There's slab wing airplanes, which essentially are wood and fabric winged airplanes, and then there's taper wings, which are foam and fiberglass or foam and carbon fiber overlay, which makes them fast. So there's kind of 2 subcategories within this organization.
Aerodynamics is very challenging with these airplanes with limited amounts of horsepower. You really got to get into books and learn your aero to make the airplane go fast. For example, last lap player, when it first entered into air racing, was 40 miles an hour slower than it is now.
They're purpose-built airplanes. They're not something that most people see around an airport every day. They're Formula 1 race airplanes and very light, very fast, and very maneuverable.
What you're looking at here is the tip of the spear of experimental aviation. You know, we are R&Ding all the time to make the airplane better, faster, more efficient, and so on. Be it better cooling and all the ergonomics of the aircraft. So it's an ongoing process. There's always stuff to do on a racer. It's never done. Very, very difficult. Obviously, this is World Championship level. These are the fastest airplanes of their kind in the world. It's not an easy thing to do. It's actually very difficult to cheat in this class, which I really enjoy. The tech guys are very good at what they do. They know the airplane's in and out, and they don't let anybody get away with anything. So the culture in Formula One is not to cheat, which is really a wonderful thing.
Formula One air racing is the most restricted form of air racing there is. We have extremely stringent technical rules. We go through a tech inspection. They'll make you tear the engine down if they suspect that something's not right.
And there's ways to get a lot of speed out of these airplanes without spending a lot of money. And so it's just all about the learning. The learning is what I love about it.
The way I'll put it is, how much juice can you squeeze out of an orange? There's always a little bit more that you can get somewhere.
You know, we have a set of rules, we have a box we have to stay in. And the fun part is finding exactly how close to the edge of that box you can take it and still stay in the rules. So there's all sorts of tricks. There's limitations, there's rules, but there's also tricks and some outside the box thinking. When we have Reno, we have 6 or 7 different classes out there, and the cool thing about Formula One is it's somewhat affordable. I like to call it the least expensive racing class to get into. We have almost $100,000 between 2 airplanes there, between building and testing and developing and messing things up and building again and fixing. There's a lot into it.
All the aircraft are built to the same formula, the Formula One recipe, which is fixed pitch propeller, fixed gear, and a whole bunch of other things. So when the aircraft arrive, they're all tech inspected to make sure that nobody's doing anything a bit clever, cheating a little bit. Not that anyone would do that. You know, sometimes people might try something a little bit on the edge for that extra bit of speed, but that's what the tech guys are here for, and you know, you'll get caught out if you try something like that.
These are really exciting pieces of machinery in their own right. Just looking at these, how they're getting the performance out of what is basically a standard aircraft engine. It's the engine you would have in your Flying Club Cessna. Yet these guys have got these doing over 200 miles an hour around the pylons, close wingtip to wingtip racing. Imagine if you're watching car racing on a track, you're seeing 2-dimensional overtaking. You can either turn left or turn right. Here it's 3-dimensional jousting, and it just blows my mind.
As we've seen, it takes no small effort on the part of the pilots, the mechanics and the sports and events logistics crew to get the event here in Thailand up and running. But without the right venue, it's never going to take off. It needs hangar space, it needs airspace, it needs somewhere willing to welcome thousands of spectators with open arms. Utapao Airport, southeast of Bangkok, was the location of the first pylon air race in the history of Asia Pacific last year. Now the world's attention focuses on this Royal Thai Naval Air Base and International Airport for this historic event. Air Race 1 CEO Jeff Zeltman explains how welcome the sport has been made.
When I first visited Utapao Airport and talked to our partners in Thailand, it didn't take but 12 seconds for me to figure out this is the place we've got to do it. They've got the facilities, world-class facilities, they've got the people, the team. Everything is really just perfect for us to host a race like this. And this is a challenging race. I mean, it's a very unique motorsport. 8 airplanes racing together. This is unique. It's the first time in all of Asia, the whole Asia Pacific region, that we've ever had a race like this. So for Thailand to jump in there and say, we want to host it, let's do this. You know, I came in, you know, just cautiously, and absolutely from that day forward, everything has just been perfect. And I really need to compliment the Thai people for welcoming us and for being able to adapt to a new sport. And they're really good at that. And actually, sport has become a part of the strategy of tourism for the Ministry of Tourism and Sport and for Thailand to develop and attract visitors to Thailand. So the way they've also integrated our event into their strategy and to launch their 2018 Year of Tourism in Thailand has really been fantastic. And we are absolutely touched and delighted and thrilled and honored that we can be part of the Thai calendar. They have rolled out the red carpet for us here in Thailand. The Deputy Prime Minister was here, the King was here to visit, And this event has actually been signed off and been through all the system of the government at the highest levels. They've all approved it, the parliament, and everybody's involved. And we couldn't be more grateful to every aspect of Thailand. And of course, it's the Sports Authority of Thailand, which is our direct partner, and they're really trying to develop sport and tourism through these events. And they've just really made a fantastic welcome for us.
These pictures from the grand opening ceremony at Utapao Airport south of Bangkok, a Royal Thai Navy facility where the military and indeed thousands of spectators were determined to lay on a very special welcome for one of the world's most thrilling and fastest forms of motorsport. The ceremony over, no less than Thailand's Deputy Prime Minister was keen to take a closer look at the planes and get the inside story from the pilots and ground crew. After a week of unpacking, reassembling, test flying and practice, the Air Race 1 World Cup Thailand presented by Chang wowed the crowds with two dramatic races on the Friday, starting 3 days of wingtip to wingtip action at the Utapao Naval Air Base. The first of the heats, the silver race, was dominated by number 15, last lap player, flown by Texan Richard Zada, whose modified Cassette Racer lapped the entire field except number 9, Outlaw, flown to second place by Scott Holmes from Edmonton, Canada. There was a close battle for third, with fast-starting British pilot Trevor Jarvis in 58, Sonic Zoom, being chased and eventually passed by number 27, Once More, flown by Kent Jackson from Washington, D.C., and by number 26, Fast and Easy, flown by Paul Newman from Ohio, USA. The final finisher was Steve Tumlin in number 52, Feisty, after Des Hart from Scotland in number 81, Sleeper, was forced to retire with an overheating engine. The second of the heats, the gold race, saw number 99, What Airplane Honey, flown by Tim Cohn of California, taking a convincing victory after a spectacular pass on early race leader number 69, Philip Goforth of Texas, who continued to finish second. Third place went to the home team, Cyan Air Racing number 22, Hysteria, of Bangkok resident Parisian Lionel Mugel, after overtaking number 79, Justin Phillipson of California in No Strings Attached, which finished ahead of Chip Maples in number 40, Miss USA. A number of potential frontrunners were sidelined, including number 4, Jerry Marshall in Tumbleweed, which retired from the gold race, Steve Temple in number 45, Quad Nickel, through starting problems, and Tom Richard in Outrageous after a late propeller change.
I'm very pleased. I've had an amazing help from my crew chief, Mike Kaufman. We built the airplane in 58 days from kind of a total wreck, and brought it back up to Reno, and here we are. I just want to keep doing what I do and not change anything. We haven't had the cowl off for anything other than an oil change, so pretty excited.
So Tim Cohn emerging very much the front runner, but a strong performance also from Richard Sadder in the silver category could see him promoted to gold. Thailand's Minister for Tourism, another VIP visitor taking a close interest here at the Air Race 1 World Cup presented by Chang. Saturday, officially the day scheduled for the semi-finals for both silver and gold races, and with conditions looking pretty much perfect, all set for some incredible wingtip to wingtip action in the skies above Utapao. We've heard from the pilots about the planes they fly, but what we asked were the skills required of the man at the controls.
It's a sprint at the beginning, and then by lap 5, it's an endurance run to see if you can maintain the temperatures and the parameters of that engine. And it's absolute paramount to try to maintain those temperatures.
We call these tail draggers because they've got the tail wheel at the back end. They're a little bit different to the average Cessna. You'll hear the guys, the Americans, say they're a little bit squirrely, and they are. They're a little bit squirrely.
We don't care about what's behind us. We only care what's in front of us. Our 180-degree vision is all that matters. The guy behind, let's say it's me, I'm responsible for a safe pass, and I cannot tuck in front of him until I know that he sees me.
There is no blocking in our sport. So unlike race cars, if I have my little mirror there and I see him coming up, I'll shift over a little bit. You cannot do that in this sport.
In formation flying, there's a maneuver called an echelon position, and it's off the 45 position on the guy's wing, so you maintain that position throughout the turn. So some guys can do it, some guys can't. Being a formation trained guy, I can usually roll echelon, but what we like to say, it's an uncooperative formation. So he's gonna, your lead is essentially rolling and you roll with him. So the trick is to try to stay on his wing and in the echelon position so you're not bleeding that energy in the turn, because you can't do it all in a straight, so you gotta be able to manage your turns too.
You know, we are wingtip to wingtip. Every race is totally dynamic. You're flying the same course, but every time it's different because all the other guys are doing different things. You, of course, have to watch out for the guy in front of his wake turbulence. That's one of the biggest risks for us, is when you're cranked over in the turn, pulling 3.5 Gs, and you hit someone else's wake, it can flip you right over. You have to be ready for that. So yeah, it's a pretty demanding sport. It might look like we're flying around in circles, but there's a heck of a lot going on.
In auto racing, you got drafting. That doesn't work too well here because now you're in the wake turbulence or the turbulent air, and you're really controlling the airplane, fighting it to keep it control, and now you're slowing the airplane down. So you want to try to find the smooth air on the outside of them or away from them.
You got to be very, very smooth, and you got to be a good formation pilot. One of the things you will see with the less experienced guys is they try to think on a level playing field, like car racing, where they roll over next to each other and try to take it. Well, that outside course is so much wider that it takes a massive speed difference to make that happen. Where you have to be is wingtip to wingtip up here, because then the distance isn't so great. So this is the tricky part. This is where you need to be, rubbing wingtips almost, in order to overtake. So when you push onto the straightaway, you can have that extra smash because of the altitude you have on.
Yeah, so we do something called stacking. So in the corners, this is three-dimensional racing. It's not 2D like in cars. So we can climb in the corners to stay behind somebody. And then when we roll out in the straights, we can convert that altitude to airspeed and get by them on the straightaways where it's much easier.
If you don't know how to pass well, you're not going to pass. So you have to know how to time the pass to where you need to be, see what kind of closure rates you have, and coming out of the turn usually translate altitude into some airspeed and get in front of the guy, because the airplanes are so well matched. If you're not flying a good line, you're not going to catch the guy.
It's a physical beatdown. It's 7.5 minutes of a continuous isometric strain because I'm pulling enough G's on the corner due to the speed that I'm having to do that for 7 minutes in this heat. I'm losing 2 to 3 pounds in a 15-minute period.
The heat is pretty brutal here, and the airplanes are set up normally when we race at Reno. They're set up to be racing at about 6,000 feet, and so we just took 6,000 feet off of that because the ocean's right there.
So many of these airplanes are so close in speed that takeoff position can determine the outcome. We all want to fly the tightest line we can. We want to be safe. within the limits of safety. We want to be tight and we want to be low.
Well, after a slight delay in proceedings thanks to a surprise visit by no less than His Highness the King of Thailand, Saturday's action got underway with two scintillating wingtip-to-wingtip races for the fast and furious Formula One aircraft. The first of the races, the Silver Heat, saw the fast-starting British racer Trevor Jarvis in Sonic Zoom rapidly overhauled by Jerry Marshall in number 4 Tumbleweed. However, Marshall was in turn being hunted down by Tom Richard in number 12 Outrageous. The Florida-based Swede and 2015 Air Race 1 World Cup winner had arrived in Thailand as a race judge, only taking over the aircraft on the eve of the event, but pulled off a spectacular overtaking move on the 6th and final lap to snatch victory at an average speed of 217.89 miles an hour. Marshall hung on to second place, ensuring that he and Richard will move up to race in Sunday's gold semi-final. But Californian Steve Temple just missed out with third place in number 45 Potnickel, while Suede Rand, Kent Jackson, Trevor Jarvis and Steve Tumlin completed the finishers. Scotland's Des Hart in 81 Sleeper was forced to pull out of the race with a continuation of his engine problems. The second gold race saw disappointment for the home team at Siam Air Racing number 22 Hysteria of Bangkok resident French pilot Lionel Mugel, who suffered mechanical issues and was withdrawn from the start line. It was number 99, What Airplane Honey, flown by Tim Cohn of California, that took the checkered flag for the second time this weekend, ahead of early race leader number 69, Philip Goforth in Naughty Girl. The Texan was promoted to victory though, after it was judged that Cohn had cut inside a turn pylon. The resultant 12-second penalty dropped Cohn to third place, behind number 79 Justin Phillipson of California in No Strings Attached. The remaining gold race places were taken by Richard Sada, Chip Maypoles, Paul Newman and Scott Holmes of Canada.
Once again, he jumped me on the start, got well in front of me. Justin got ahead of me as well. Justin was hard to get around. It was touch and go getting around him. Once I got some clean air, chased this guy down and passed him, but they say I cut. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, I felt him back there. He was coming. There's shark music for sure. Dun, 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 dun. That's all I can hope for is he makes a mistake or something. His plane is definitely, he's got it dialed in well, so it's fast.
Well, fast indeed. The heats confirming the pilots and the planes to watch. Tom Richard in Outrageous, clearly the fastest of the Silver Heat racers, and we'll see him move up to the gold as a result. While Tim Cohn showing a clean pair of heels among the gold class with a qualifying speed of 368 kilometers an hour. While the pilots acknowledged an enthusiastic crowd of thousands who'd enjoyed a great day of racing throughout Saturday here at Untitled Airport in Thailand. Sunday, the climax of an incredible 3 days of racing here at Untitled Airport south of Bangkok, and we're heading to the first of our full races, the Silver Final. Starting places already decided by the last chance to shine race, the Silver semi-final, when once again the fast-starting British racer Trevor Jarvis in number 58 Sonic Zoom led the field into the first turn. But the surprise of the day came when Lionel Mugel in the home team Siam Air Racing number 22 Hysteria stormed past both Jarvis and number 40 Miss USA, flown by Chip Maples, to take a race lead that couldn't be challenged. The victory was vindication for the Bangkok resident Parisian who had suffered mechanical issues and withdrew from the start line in Saturday's heats. Behind second place Chip Maples, the battle for third culminated in a spectacular wingtip-to-wingtip fight to the finish between number 9 Scott Holmes of Edmonton in Canada and number 26 Paul Newman of Ohio in Fast and Easy. Such was the heat of the battle that Newman was later penalised for low flying, dropping him from 4th to 7th behind Kent Jackson, Steve Toomlin and Trevor Jarvis. So that victory bumps Lionel Mugel up to fight the gold final. Full coverage of that soon, but first we join our man on the tarmac, James Zanadakis, to look at the GPS tracking technology used to monitor the plane's performances.
Good afternoon, I'm James Zanadakis and welcome back to Untitled Airport. Plenty of activity going on in the hangar here. We've got racing starting in a few minutes, but before that we're going to talk about technology and specifically plane trackers. Let's head over now and speak to Fred, who's a member of the 51 Aero team. I'm just going to sit down next to you, Fred, and we can have a little look at some of the telemetry on the computer here and you can talk to us about what it is.
So basically what we're doing is we're tracking the aircraft and we're monitoring how fast it's actually flying, and then we're comparing that to what the race speeds are at. So we can actually come back and determine on a per lap basis how fast the airplane is going and how close the pylons are doing. This is actually Leo's airplane in 2 different races. This is the gold race yesterday and his race the day before. What happens is they take off here and then they will fly the race, and then once they're finished, this is coming off the home pylon. This is where they do the cool down, come back in, taxi in and land.
Okay, let's have a chat with Leo. He is the pilot for Hysteria. He's just over here and he's going to hopefully show us where this technology is in the plane itself.
We don't have much space in these aeroplanes, so the best for us is to have like the technology that the 51 Aero is providing us, very small sensors and equipments. That's probably the best we can do and achieve to get the data we want out of it. So just basically fairly simple, just a GPS receiver which you place out of any kind of interference that you may get. So I choose this spot, which is not disturbing me when I'm flying, and also optimizing the reception of the signal. On top of it, it's just connected, you can see below my flight equipment, and I'm actually sitting on it. Just a telemetry sensor, all the sensors and the computer is on there. So fairly simple, record all data, and after the flight, the team of Fred is coming with a USB stick, just plug it in, get the data out, and as you saw, give us super good reading and nice feedback of any of our lines, which is great because it can in one way confirm what we feel and see and fly, but also help us to correct. It's just a fantastic tool that you can couple with engine monitoring system, and it's not anymore just the feeling of the pilot, it's also a very scientific, highly engineered approach of our way of flying, which is just what we want.
Time now for the finals action to begin. The Silver Showdown first, as we hand back to our men on the spot, James Zanadakis and Steve Slater.
So after nearly a week of build-up and heat, it is time now for the Air Race 1 World Cup Silver Final. The pilots and teams have travelled from the far corners of the globe for this one, the Air Race 1 World Cup here in Thailand, and it all comes down to this.
Oh yes, this is where the trophies are won or lost. The red flag is up, the engines are running. That red flag means 30 seconds to the green flag and the race start, with 8 aircraft out on the start line.
So the pilots then, of course, split into 2 rows, depending on their qualifying time, sitting there on the runway. Lots will be going through their minds at the moment. The crowd are ready, the pilots are ready, the flag is dropped, and we're racing here in Thailand.
Well, this is now about who is going to be the fast starter off this big, big runway. Ken Jackson, once more, the man from Washington, D.C., USA. But it's the British pilot, Trevor Jarvis, who's making a very quick start. Number 40 there, that's Chip Maples from Florida. And there's the Flying Scotsman, Des Hart, who's had an engine failure in every race so far.
Yeah, Des Hart has had wicked luck so far over the weekend. Hopefully his luck can change. We're back on board with Ken Jackson. A decent start as the pilots are jostling for position on this opening lap.
Well, one aeroplane to watch out for, the distinctive red and white Scott Holmes from Canada. But already Miss USA, number 40, starting to set some pace at the front of the field. And now the green flag at the end of the opening lap. These are the timed race laps. Now we're officially going racing.
The formation lap then is done. We are racing here in Thailand. A good start by Swade Ran. He is leading the pack at the moment. No surprises there. He's been super quick all weekend. He's definitely one to keep an eye on in these early parts of this final here in Thailand.
Well, working through the low-level air turbulence, there on the left of your screens, that's Trevor Jarvis in Sonic Zoom, but you can see that he's got a fine pitch propeller. His aircraft accelerates fast, but it's like being in low gear. He doesn't have the straight line speed, and the number 26, Paul Newman from New Albany, Ohio, moves through to take the place.
And here we can see Des Hart racing through the field, trying to make a move now on Chip Maples in Miss USA, making their way up the start-finish straight, making their way past the crowd. This then the battle for second place.
And a real gaggle of race aircraft there. Ken Jackson closing in on the trail of Trevor Jarvis as he's slipping back down the field. And all of these aircraft, same engines, but all their top speeds slightly different, somewhere between 225 and 235 miles an hour.
Here we can see then that battle between Ken Jackson and Trevor Jarvis on the back straight, wingtip to wingtip, and Ken Jackson has got the job done on the back straight, making his way past Trevor Jarvis in Sonic Zoom.
And there's one of the most historic aircraft in the field, Miss USA. And watch there again, you can see the G-forces building. That's Chip Maples in Miss USA, actually holding his oxygen mask on against the G-forces. Another man moving up fast through the field, number 9, Scott Holmes in Outlaw, the man from Edmonton in Canada.
On board now then with Scott Holmes, who is one of the least experienced pilots out there. He's up now into third place, because this is of course Chip Maples, who did have Des Hart all over the back of him. But Des Hart, where is he? It seems he has had to retire once again here in the Air Race 1 World Cup final in Thailand.
Well, disappointment for Des Hart, but there's some great racing going on around the field at the moment. Number 27, Kent Jackson from Washington, D.C. in once more traditional castle with the square wings, short stubby fuselage, as indeed there is Trevor Jarvis's aircraft. Now contrast that style to the carbon composite wings on some of the quicker aircraft. You'll see a tapered wing, very different profile as well, much sleeker and quicker. There's the difference. It's hard to believe they're the same kind of airplane.
No, we can absolutely see Chip Maples on a charge there. Now he's not worrying about Des Hart all over the back of him, perhaps relaxing into his flying a little bit more. And we see a nice slow-mo shot there of Scott Holmes, who still up in third place.
Well, there is the traditional plank wing Kasut, a big battle going on between the two, and that is Swade Round trying to go all the way around the outside of Kent Jackson. Now Kent is holding a very tight line right down on the markers that keep the pylon, so that is forcing Heatstroke to go the long way round, but look at that difference in straight line speed.
Well, we can see, of course, Swade Round there is the race leader at the moment. Ken Jackson just a spectator to him at the moment. The white flag is flying in the air, then that means it is the last lap, and the crowd are really starting to get excited now.
And that is race leader Swade Round from Springfield, Georgia, USA. And running behind him, Chip Maples, second place in the Kasut Slipknot Miss USA. They're both lapping Kent Jackson to put him one lap down as they head to the checkered flag, well over 200 miles an hour. Beautiful clipping of the pylons there, precise flying by all of these pilots while they're pulling 4G, 4 times the force of gravity, through the final corners.
This then is Chip Maples making his way past the 5th pylon, swaying all over the shop. I don't think he's going to quite Swade Round, who makes his way past the start-finish line. He is the silver world champion.
And they're pulling up into the victory climb goes Sweden from Springfield, Georgia, USA. Heatstroke takes victory in Utapao Air Base in Thailand.
Ooh, man, I'm feeling great. Feeling great. It was a good race, a lot of adrenaline pump. I'm still coming down. Airplane flew great, temps were great. Had a real clean race. Nobody cut any pylons, no low flying. Perfect day.
So a tremendous result for Suede Ran, winner of the silver final. Second place, Chip Maypoles, also of the USA, and third, Scott Holmes of Canada. The focus shifting now, though, onto the fastest pilots in the fastest planes. The gold final, the climax of the Air Race 1 World Cup, presented by Chang. Well, Tim Cohn will take pole position after flying fastest in this morning's semi-final, which culminated in two spectacular battles. Tim Cohn in 99 Watt Airplane Honey stormed up the field, passing Justin Phillipson in 79 No Strings Attached for third, and then passed Philip Goforth in 69 Naughty Girl to take the checkered flag at an average speed of 227.192 miles per hour. There was an equally thrilling battle for fourth with Florida-based Swede and 2015 Air Race 1 World Cup winner Tom Richard in 12 Outrageous, recovering from a slow start to dice over the final 3 laps with New Mexico crop duster Jerry Marshall in number 4 Tumbleweed. 6th, 7th and 8th places were respectively taken by Steve Temple, Richard Zadar and Suede Ran. So Tim Cohn, the man to look out for as the time approaches for the gold final of the Air Race 1 World Cup presented by Chang. Sunday, the climax of an incredible 3 days of racing here at Utapao Airport south of Bangkok, and we're heading for the big one, the gold final. 8 aircraft racing at speeds of over 450 kilometers an hour on a circuit just 2 kilometers end to end. The first aircraft to cross the finish line wins the fastest motorsport on earth, as we hand over to our commentators in Thailand, Steve Slater and James Zanidakis.
Welcome back to the runway here in Thailand. It is time now for the Air Race 1 World Cup Gold Final. Every previous heat, all the hard work leading up to this moment, the final showdown.
And as always, a final kiss goodbye from the race mechanics to their airplanes. This has been a pretty intense week of action for the pilots and for the crews who've been fine-tuning these aircraft to get more and more out of them with every single lap. And now we're at that final countdown. 8 laps ahead of the pilots, and the green flag is ready to drop to start the gold final for the Air Race 1 World Series, brought to you by Chang.
Off they go then, and Steve Temple in plane 45 quad nickel off to a good start on the outside of the course as the teams look up anxiously from the ground. A packed grandstand as you'd expect here in Thailand for this Air Race 1 final.
Well, there is Steve Temple taking the first of the pylons down at 50 feet, speed still building. And don't forget, it's all about your speed at the end of this opening lap. And some aircraft start the race faster than others. They've got coarser pitch propellers. Tom Richard in Outrageous, for example, he knows his aircraft accelerates slower, but has a faster straight line speed. He's going to be worth watching later in the race.
So the formation lap is complete, and we are racing here at the gold final in Utapao Airport in Thailand. Leading the way at the moment then is Philip Goforth. A great start by him.
Well, Philip Goforth there with the very distinct purple-blue aircraft, but catching him now steadily is number 99, Watt Airplane Honey. Tim Cohn from California. There you can see the 2 aircraft ahead of him as they pull down onto that start-finish runway. And that aircraft is moving up fast on the race leaders.
Tim Cohn then has been consistently quicker than everybody else so far over the week, all through the various heats, and he's coming up the outside now of Justin Phillips. And this battle for second place really hotting up here, wingtip to wingtip racing.
And that really is good racing by both of these pilots. Justin Phillipson there in the shoestring racer, painted green and yellow, holding the tighter line, forcing Tim Cohn to go the long way around the outside, but it's straight line speed for the 99 aircraft, takes it through. He'll be able to claim the line now through the next set of pylons, and that probably now means he is up into that second place and chasing for the race lead.
Great racing then by both pilots. Tim Cohn will now, of course, be chasing down Philip Goforth in Flyboys Air Racing. He's leading the race at the moment, but he has Tim Cohn all over the back of him. Tim Cohn then closing in on the race lead.
And it's Texas versus California. Tim Cohn, What Airplane Honey, closing in on the tail of Philip Goforth, Naughty Girl. Now, Philip Goforth is a Texas rancher. He actually has an air race course built out on his ranch so he can practice the perfect racing line round the bollards.
And you can see there for a second the differences in speed. Tim Cohn a couple of miles an hour faster, and it's so close, this battle between the two of them, just meters between the two planes. Tim Cohn then going up high. Can he get it done on this back straight?
I don't think he can. He's got the straight line speed, but holding that tighter line, Philip Goforth is making it incredibly difficult for him to find a way through.
And what a treat for the crowd here as this battle right in front of them as we head past the start-finish straight. Again, Tim Cohn going up high, and it is Philip Goforth going down lower, but he's gone very low, and that's lost him a bit of time, and Tim Cohn just about gets the job done and takes the lead here in the gold final.
And really there, Philip Goforth had to back out of that. He was sinking down towards the ground. It is three-dimensional motor racing. There's one of the most spectacular aircraft. That's the home Thai team, Lionel Mughal, flying the Panther aircraft. But there are the two race leaders as we move into the closing stages of the race. But keep an eye open behind them. There's a couple of aircraft starting to close in.
One of those aircraft is, of course, Tom Richard in Outrageous. He's been quick all weekend. He didn't get the particularly quickest of starts in this gold final, but he is closing in quickly on Justin Phillipson. The crowd, you can see there, really engaged with this battle.
Tom Richard wasn't even intending to be racing this weekend. He stood in for the aircraft owner, Eve Clark from the UK, who decided he wasn't experienced enough to race his new aircraft Outrageous. And what a job Tom Richard has been doing. A Reno racing veteran, normally flies a 3,500 horsepower P51 Mustang. But here in Outrageous, closing in on no strings attached, Justin Phillipson.
And the crowd here in Thailand then being treated to another battle right in front of their very eyes. Tom Richard closing in and Justin Phillipson for that final podium place as we go back on board then with Tim Cohn. He's leading the way at the moment.
Meanwhile, it's the battle behind him that's grabbing the attention. There is Tom Richard, the Casut Outrageous. There on his wingtip, the carbon composite fuselage shoestring racer of Justin Phillipson. And no strings attached, holding the tight line, forcing Tom Richard to go all the way around the outside in Outrageous. These are two of the fastest, state-of-the-art Formula One air racers, absolutely on the limit.
Tom Richard then doing absolutely everything he can to get in front of Justin Phillipson. A strap from his harness flapping up in front of his face. Lots going through his mind as he makes his way past the start-finish straight. Heading on to the final lap. Can he get past Justin Phillipson for that final podium place?
Well, Tom Richard trying to stay high, trying to use his momentum going round the pylon and then diving back in onto the straight to try and get the straight line speed. But Justin Phillipson flying that tight radius, low level, down to 50 feet, doing a tremendous job. And meanwhile, heading for the checkered flag, it's Tim Cohn in What Airplane Honey, takes the checkered flag and the gold final in Thailand.
Meanwhile, then we'll go back to this battle then between Tom Richard and Justin Phillipson. I don't think Tom Richard's going to get ahead of him. No, he's not. It is Justin Phillipson still ahead then as we make our way onto the start-finish straight. It is Justin Phillipson who takes that final podium position. Excellent racing as Tom Richard smiles on. He knows he's done absolutely everything he can.
Well, what a race. Great second place too for Philip Goforth from Texas in Naughty Girl. And then that battle for third, literally a photo finish on the line. What a fantastic week of racing.
Unbelievably happy. In love with Thailand, in love with the guys that I race with. Some of the best pilots in the world do this. You stop and think about it, there's more astronauts than there are Formula One pilots. So to have managed to get on top today, it tops off an amazing summer and an amazing year, and I can't wait to come back and defend my title next year.
Wow, I can't get over this. I mean, the turnout and the racing, everything was spectacular. It was thrilling, it was exciting, it was fast-paced, it was everything we hoped it would be, and a lot more. The audience, the response from everyone in the crowd was just, I mean, they're overwhelmed, I'm overwhelmed, the pilots are overwhelmed. You know, we're going to come back. This is the biggest and best air race we've ever had. This is, in the history of all air racing, we believe this was the greatest moment, so we couldn't be happier. We knew we were going to get good racing and competitive racing because all the best pilots were here, 16 of the best pilots in the world. No one knew how it was going to turn out. Tim did a fantastic job. He had a couple troubles earlier on in a couple of races, set him back a little bit. He came back. He deserved the win, that's for sure. And all the pilots, I mean, they were close. It was some really close racing. It's an old sport, but it's a new series. We're going to launch into the mainstream of the sporting world and hit it with a big boom.
So confirmation of the results of the gold final, a hat-trick at the top for US pilots. Tim Cohn takes the big win, Philip Goforth in Naughty Girl second, and Justin Phillipson in No Strings Attached third. That's it from Thailand and the Air Race 1 World Cup presented by Chang. Join us again next time around.